everybody. Let me turn my lights on here. How are you doing today? Good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are. Thank you for joining me this fine 9:15 a.m. where I am. The title of this video is pretty self-explanatory. I am planning on just going ahead and reacting to some of the news that has been given on the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. This has been the first week of the trial. The trial is expected to last 6 weeks. It could be more, it could be less, depending on, all kinds of variables and factors. So, unlike other high profile cases that have been in the media lately, including the Kyle Rittenhouse and Jussie. Actually, I don't even know if the Jussie Smollett case, so let me not even speak out of turn. I actually don't even know. But Kyle Rittenhouse case, for example, was televised live, gavel to gavel. So from the opening to the closing of the case, it was televised. But unlike that trial, this particular one I'm going to be referring to this particular person as Maxi from here on out, because the algorithm doesn't like it when we talk about this case. So the Maxi, who we're talking about today, her trial is not being televised. And so the only people who are able to really access the court are people who are able to, physically travel to New York. Now, listen, don't put it past me, because I might be in that courtroom next week to just see, be in the room where it happens. Y'all know I love to do that. And I don't live too far from New York, so I may actually be doing that. I'm going to talk to someone who I do know was able to get in on the first day and see what the, logistics were and everything like that. So we'll see. But because this trial is not being televised, we are very, very unfortunately having to rely on the corporate media and the mainstream media to tell us the stories. So I kind of thought this would actually be a really good exercise to go through together with each other live a bunch of different types of news stories about this trial, and maybe we can take some information from, right-wing news, corporate news, mainstream media. We can take from more liberal left-wing, and we can kind of try to put together what we really think is going on in this case. So I know a lot of y'all, do subscribe to a political party. I do not. I am not a Republican, nor am I a Democrat. I very strongly oppose people trying to force me personally into one of those boxes. I do not subscribe to a political party. And so I want to get that out of the way, because some of y'all are probably about to be offended by some of the sources that I'm using. So I do want to just tell you, the reason we're using sources from all over the political map is because I don't like biased news. But unfortunately, we are unable to sit in that courtroom ourselves. So I'm going to take news from all over the political spectrum in order to try and ascertain what actually happened. That is going to be something that you are unable to tolerate. Please do X out of this video and come back for a different video. If you are not able to tolerate news from a variety of different sources, that's fair, your body, your choice. Get off my channel. This is not the place for you. This is a place for people who are independent thinkers, or who maybe are subscribed to a political party, but do understand that we need to get our news from outside of our own echo chamber. Okay, thank you very much. All right, so now that I got that out of the way, hopefully I have a couple mods in here who can take care of people. I know that, this case is very politicized already. So let's just see if we can get through this without, being too horrible to each other and also me. Thank you. So first one I'm going to share is a New York Times article. And again, I'm not endorsing or, knocking any of these articles. I have not been in the courtroom. We are trying to gather information and ascertain what we think happened this week in the trial. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen here with you. And the title of this article is "What Happened the First Day of the Maxi Trial." Maxi is accused of, and y'all are going to have to really fill in the blanks on this because I'm not allowed to say half of these words. Okay. This is what she's accused of. Working with, Jeff. Her defense said on Monday that she was also being used as a scapegoat for him. Okay, so New York Times is telling us that on Monday, the first day of the trial, the defense, her defense, meaning Maxi's lawyers, have said, no. Maxi's being used as a scapegoat, and we're going to tell you why. Again, I wasn't there. I'm just reading this with y'all as we go. Okay, here's what you need to know. So this is what the New York Times thinks we need to know, that there are 4 key takeaways from Maxi trial. On the first day, prosecutors say Maxi and Jeffy were partners in crime. The first witness in the trial is one of Epstein's pilots. Defense lawyers say Maxi is a scapegoat. Maxi, quote, blank young girls and served them to Jeff, a prosecutor said. And even in death, Jeff looms over Maxi's trial. Who is she? And here are the charges she faces. Okay, so what we're going to read now is 4 key takeaways from her trial. So this picture here is of Sarah Ransom, who is one of the accusers, and she is coming into court looking nice, great outfit. Arrives at the federal courthouse in Manhattan where Epstein's former girlfriend is on trial. Okay, so just a little tiny bit about this particular accuser. She has, I have my notes here. Let me just check with them. She has actually accused and alleged that she was going to attempt to swim away from the island after she had been suffered a little bit of abuse. It is ridiculous what I'm not allowed to say on this channel, but here we are. She said that she had suffered 3 separate instances of abuse on this island, and that day she got on a 4-wheeler quad, some people might call it, and intended to escape from the island. And she said that it would have actually been welcome for her to be attacked and eaten by a shark. She said she didn't care. If she had to swim away and get eaten by a shark, then that was fine with her. So that's this person here we're looking at. So the trial of Maxi, and they're calling Maxi Jeff's former romantic partner and employee, got underway in federal district court in Manhattan on Monday with opening statements and testimony from one of the pilots who flew Mr. Epstein's private planes. In the coming weeks, jurors are expected to hear testimony from 4 women who prosecutors said were abused as teenagers by Mr. Epstein. So Maxi, the daughter of a British media mogul, so interesting that she's in the media, right? She grew up the daughter of a media mogul, a billionaire media mogul, faces 6 counts stemming from what prosecutors say was her role in the, I'm not allowed to say this on this platform, of women. The charges include enticing a minor to travel to engage in criminal certain type of activity and transporting that minor with the intent to engage in this particular type of criminal activity. Here are some takeaways from the first day of the trial. The jury will hear the story of Jane, who was only 14 when she met Jeff. In describing how evidence would show that Maxi helped Epstein treat these teenage girls this way, a prosecutor sketched out the story of one accuser referred to only by her first name, Jane. Now, I have read elsewhere that Jane is an actor and has a 21-year-long acting career. And so I'm thinking that the reason Jane would like to protect her identity and keep it anonymous is because it would implicate her in her career. I'm assuming maybe she works around other powerful elite people in Hollywood, et cetera, et cetera. This part is just my speculation, which is why I took the article down to say that part. Okay. Jane met Jeff and Ghislaine and Maxi. I'm not doing very good at my code words here. In 1994, the prosecutor told jurors, and the prosecutor's name is Laura Pomerantz. A seemingly innocent encounter that began at a picnic table with the realization that the 2 adults and the teenage girl all lived in Palm Beach, Florida. It ended with Jane providing her phone number. That was the beginning of a nightmare that would last for years, the prosecutor said. She said that Maxi helped win Jane's trust with shopping trips and helped normalize this type of conduct at the hands of Mr. Jeff. The jury would hear directly from Jane and from 3 other women who had similar experiences as teenagers, the prosecutor said. Okay, what else do we want to take away according to the New York Times? Now, this is all coming from the New York Times. I'm not co-signing this article. I'm not saying, yes, I agree with it. We are going to gather information from a lot of different news sources to try and ascertain whether or not we can get to the bottom of what is actually going on. Number 2 of the New York Times points, they say the defense will try to show that the 4 accusers' memories are unreliable. So this is going to be Maxi's lawyer's attempt to show that the memories of these victims is just unreliable and they are unreliable sources. They're not credible. That's going to be Maxi's lawyer's strategy. Sorry. A few minutes later, defense lawyer Bobby C. Sternheim told jurors that recollections from witnesses like Jane, who were expected to testify under oath about the ABUSE, were not to be trusted. She suggested the accusers had unreliable and suspect memories. Okay, this is just infuriating. That could have been corrupted over the years or contaminated by constant media reports. The defense attorney also suggested that the accusers were motivated by a desire to win a big jackpot of money from a possible civil action against Mr. Epstein's estate. So the defense, Maxi's defense, is basically saying these women are liars and they're just trying to get money. Each accuser's story is thin, meaning it's not very convincing, is according to Maxi's lawyers. They have been impacted by lawyers, by media, by things they have read and things that they have heard, and by money, big bucks. Okay, this is sickening. You know what's really been impacted by big bucks is these victims' ability to actually come forward, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. Another defense strategy will be to shift the blame to a now allegedly dead Mr. Jeff. The defense lawyer painted Maxi as a scapegoat who is on trial only because Jeff had eliminated himself from the earth in a federal jail. That self-elimination, Maxi's lawyer told to jurors, left a gaping hole in the pursuit of justice for many people. Well, wouldn't the defense like that to be the case? I disagree completely. Maxi is filling that hole, Miss defense lawyer said, filling that empty chair where Jeff should be sitting. Ever since Eve was accused of tempting Adam with the apple. Okay, now they're going to use biblical imagery to try to make it seem like that Maxi is just some innocent Eve, just like Eve from the Christian Bible. If you don't know the story from the Christian Bible, the Christian mythology is that, and I don't say mythology to be offensive. It is a mythology. That's what look it up. Look up the definition of the word. So the Christian story is that Adam and Eve were the first human beings on earth, and this snake, or it was the devil disguised as a snake, slithered out of this tree to tempt Eve, who was the first woman on earth according to the Christian Bible, to eat this certain fruit off of a tree. A lot of people call it an apple. And then Eve kind of turns around after being tempted by the devil, tempts her man Adam to eat the apple or eat the fruit or whatever. And all of this is to say, poor Maxi, she's just like this poor woman who was tempted by the devil, and now she's catching the blood. Like, this is their trial strategy according to what the New York Times is saying. And now they're saying, look, women have been blamed for the bad behavior of men. And again, from what I've heard, it's hard for me to believe that Miss Maxi had these innocent motives and intentions. I think she was there the whole time. But listen, let's see what these different corporate medias are trying to tell us. The prosecution used one of Mr. Epstein's pilots to set the scene for the jurors. The first witness for the prosecution was not one of the accusers, but a private pilot, Lawrence Paul Vizosky Jr., who had worked for Jeff from 91 to 2019. Oh, wow. This guy probably knows some stuff. He worked for almost 30 years, all of the 90s, all of the 2000s, and almost all the 2010s for Jeff. So this guy, he was flying this plane for all those years. He described generally the role that Maxi played in managing Jeff's households and properties, and described their relationship as couple-ish. Guided by photographs presented as evidence, this pilot also described ferrying Jeff and his guests to various luxury residences in New York City, Paris, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Palm Beach, Florida, and Santa Fe, New Mexico. Pretty much every 4 days, we were on the road flying somewhere. He said he did not always know precisely who was flying on the planes with Jeff. Okay, so on the first day of the trial, prosecutors say Maxi and Jeff were partners in crime. Okay, so here's a little bit of the scene outside of the courtroom. We have the hotly anticipated trial of Ghislaine Maxwell drew members of the media and observers to the federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan on Monday. More than 2 years after Jeff was allegedly found eliminated in a jail cell, and a month after his arrest on these charges, Maxi, the woman who prosecutors say helped him to recruit this and ABUSE young girls, went on trial Monday in Manhattan. Maxi and Jeff were partners in crime, a federal prosecutor told the jury. Maxi did this to young girls by developing their trust and helped to normalize abusive conduct, and then she served them up to Jeff in a decade-long scheme, the prosecutor said. The defendant and Jeff, so Maxi and Jeff, made young girls believe that their dreams could come true. They made them feel special, but that was a cover. Behind closed doors, the prosecutor said the defendant, that's Maxi, and Epstein were committing heinous crimes. They were doing terrible things to teenage girls. The trial of Maxi, who is 59 and the daughter of a British media mogul and longtime fixture on the New York social scene, has been widely seen as the courtroom reckoning that Jeff avoided when he eliminated his own self in prison. Thank you so much, Far Far Away, for this precious unicorn sticker. Mr. Epstein was arrested in July 2019 on charges that he recruited dozens of girls to engage in certain acts with him on his estate in Palm Beach and his mansion in Manhattan, paying them hundreds of dollars in cash after each encounter. He eliminated himself allegedly the following month. Maxi, who was arrested in July 2020, faces charges that include this. I don't even know if I can read her charges. You can read them yourself on the screen. She could face up to 70 years in prison if convicted on all counts. She has steadfastly maintained her innocence, and her lawyer, Bobby C. Sternheim, told the jury that the evidence would not support the charges against her client. She suggested the memories of the accusers were unreliable and tainted by constant media reports. She also described Maxwell as a scapegoat for Epstein's actions, adding ever since Eve. So this is all the same thing, kind of like sort of over and over. So now I would like to share a different screen with y'all. I think we got enough from New York Times, in my personal opinion. But we can go back to it if we need to. We just have other stuff to go over here. New York Times was telling us what they needed to tell us, so let's go to the next one. Okay, so the next one, since I know a lot of y'all don't like New York Times, we'll go to Fox News. And again, I am not a fan of the corporate media. If it were up to me, I would like to have a live stream of this and tell y'all what I heard myself. Again, we have absolutely no idea because we were not in the courtroom, so we're going to use news articles from across the political aisle in order to try and ascertain what actually happened in the courtroom. If that's something that's offensive to you, please leave this channel because this is not the place for you. Thank you. Bye. Okay, so now what is Fox News saying about what happened? You know, they could be saying anything, but I'm just, I just clicked one of the top articles from the last few hours. I think this one's from 18 hours ago. So this one's titled, Maxi would do anything to meet Jeffrey's demands. Prince Andrew's cousin claims. One of 4 accusers took the stand at the trial this week. So we just now heard about this pilot who took the stand. We heard that from the New York Times. So now we're going to hear about Prince Andrew, the royal in, the UK, Britain's royalty. His cousin is testifying in this trial. And so Fox News is going to tell us a little bit about that. Maxi was determined to marry her boss, Jeff. The claim was made by Christina Oxenberg, a cousin to the British royal family who briefly knew the socialite. Jeffrey paid her very well, the 58-year-old told Fox News. She started working for him pretty much immediately after her father died. I think she saw him as her savior. Okay, so what this says is Prince Andrew's cousin came in to this trial and said, listen, Maxi started working for Jeff as soon as her dad died, and she kind of saw him as this savior. She wanted to marry him. I have no idea if Jeff knew about any of this. My suspicion is that he did because he wasn't a dummy. Oxenberg is the daughter of Princess Olivia. Oh, sorry. I don't know why I said Olivia. Princess Elizabeth of Yugoslavia, Prince Andrew's second cousin. Oxenberg has previously detailed her upbringing in a serialized memoir on Patreon. So if y'all want to read that memoir, y'all can probably read it on Patreon. Most recently, she wrote a book titled Trash, Encounters with Maxi. Interesting. Maybe we should read that book. According to Oxenberg, the two women first met in 1990, but fast forward to 1997. Maxi attempted to hire her as a ghost writer for an autobiography. This was after she wrote a book titled Royal Blue. She told me, so this is a quote from Prince Andrew's cousin, that Maxi told her that her motivation for getting the book made was for Jeffrey to see her in a different light. It would elevate her status. She actually said, this will elevate me in Jeffrey's eyes, and this way he will marry me. I want him to marry me. So she wanted, according to Prince Andrew's cousin, according to Fox News, to marry Jeffrey Epstein. Maxwell has pleaded not guilty to charges that prosecutors say show she and Epstein were partners in crime in the sexual bleep of teenage people. The defense has countered. So Maxi's lawyers have countered by claiming that she's made a scapegoat. We already read that part. So listen, okay, look, here's a good example, right? We've now seen New York Times and Fox News, right? Different, I would assume they were different ends of the political spectrum. They both are quoting that Maxi's lawyers are saying she is being used as a scapegoat. So if I'm just reading these articles on my own, what I would actually do is to say, I believe it's probably true that the lawyer did say Maxi is being used as a scapegoat, because now we have two different parts of the political aisle saying the same quote. And so I'm a little more comfortable believing it because listen, they agree on so little. If they're agreeing on something, I think that's maybe a good chance that was actually said. Does that make sense, y'all? All right. Wait, hold on. This is where I am. I hate these ads. Sorry. I wish I could make it bigger here. I can, I guess, a little bit. Here y'all go. Okay, so Maxi has pleaded not guilty. Okay. The defense is claiming she's being made a scapegoat for Jeff, who eliminated himself in his New York City jail cell in 2019 as he awaited his trial. Maxi spent the first half of her life with her father, Robert Maxwell. But in 1991, the billionaire fell off his lot. Why can't I read today? The billionaire fell off his yacht, the Lady Ghislaine, in the Canary Islands. Interesting story. That's where my ancestors are from. And he was eliminated in what some saw as an accident and others saw as eliminating himself. Investors later discovered his wealth was an illusion. He had diverted hundreds of millions of pounds from his company's pension funds to prop up his empire. So Maxi comes from a financial scammer family, it seems like, according to Fox News. So this is her right here. Soon after her father passed, she was photographed sitting next to Jeff, an American financier, during a memorial at the Plaza Hotel. She was the youngest child of media proprietor and fraudster Robert Maxwell, holding a framed photograph of her dead dad in 1991 in this picture. Her brother Ian said that Maxi's relationship with Jeff developed after the family advised her remain in the U.S. because her name was in the dirt at home. Amid the family's reputational and financial troubles, Maxi had to make her own way in New York and forge new friendships. he said. This is Maxi's brother who said this. One of those new friendships was with Jeff, a one-time teacher who built his fortune. Now, like, that's another thing I think gets glossed over a lot. Like, Epstein was a teacher, like, to young people. He built his fortune on the back of contacts, like the former CEO of the parent company of lingerie retailer Victoria's Secret. And that's Wexman, I think. I felt sympathetic toward her, the cousin of Prince Andrew said. I knew she had lost her father, but quite simply, she is very arrogant. She was bombastic, she was full of herself, and she was rude. Ooh, this is the book, Trash, Encounters with Maxi by Christina Oxenberg. I wonder if I should read that. I have so many books to read, y'all. And like, honestly, I feel nervous to even tell y'all which books I read because like y'all do not know how to act. Some of y'all are like, oh, if you're reading that book, you're necessarily this or that. Like y'all are trying so hard to control people's minds and thoughts that you make it difficult for us to even discuss very important things. I just want to let you know that before you try to type your little message controlling people again. Okay. The Prince Andrew cousin alleged that during her meeting with Maxi in 1997 to discuss that potential autobiography, Maxi went into detail about getting girls for Jeff to satisfy this type of appetite. Maxi told Oxenberg that, oh my God, this is so ridiculous. I don't know if I can actually read this sentence. This video is getting demonetized. I'm never going to be able to get. Okay, this case is hard to cover. She told me, so Maxi told Prince Andrew's cousin that Jeff had been diagnosed by doctors as having some type of medical condition that required him to do this 3 times a day. And so she couldn't be expected to keep up with this. And Maxi, Oxenberg says, I'm using her words. I had a really bad feeling about this, and had I known she was talking about children, I would have lost my mind and gone straight to the police. I responded very negatively, but I thought she was talking about adults. At this meeting, this was in 1997, a meeting between Prince Andrew's cousin and Ghislaine Maxwell. At this meeting was a woman who was obsessed with a man. She was obsessed with Jeff. Her telling me his biological needs was way too much for me. Nobody needs to hear that stuff. But she's boasting about how to deal with this problem. But this was from one single meeting. So my feeling was she's delusional. She's trying to marry him. And she's providing, women for him. She's doing anything to meet his demands. She wanted to be in full control. I just got angry because the whole thing was very outlandish. So this is her, right? This is her who was just writing all that stuff with Maxwell. And HRH Prince Dmitry of Yugoslavia, claiming that Maxi wanted to serve as a ghostwriter. Wanted her, right? So Maxi wanted this person, who's Prince Andrew's cousin, to be a ghostwriter for Maxi's autobiography. So that's what this whole meeting was about. According to court documents, one accuser would make a similar allegation about Jeff, noting, quote, it was biological, like eating. Oxenberg alleged that Maxi referred to the women as trash, which left her feeling disgusted. She also alleged that Maxi told her she would recruit 3 girls a day. Oh my God, this is disgusting. If y'all need a palate cleanse, go watch my video I posted last night of me trying Indian snacks because it's not as deep and dark as this. She was talking about humans as if they were disposable for the purpose of sex. I was just furious and I was fed up. I did not spot the red flags, but I did react very negatively. The fact that she was speaking about human beings in this horrible way was very offensive to me. But again, I thought she was discussing adults who were consenting. And then here's Jeff. In a sworn testimony for an earlier civil case, so a different case earlier, Maxi acknowledged that she had a romantic relationship with Epstein, but she said she later became his employee who was tasked with things like hiring staff for his 6 homes. Well, what does hiring staff mean? Because we've heard what the poor staff has to say, a little bit. Well, we haven't actually. We've only heard from the pilot, and now we're hearing from the cousin of Andrew. But in 2005, Jeff was arrested in Palm Beach and accused of hiring multiple underage children, many students at a local high school, to engage in activity that would have been criminal. He pled guilty to a charge of procuring a person under 18 for this word and served 13 months in jail. Now, when all of that was going on, y'all need to know, in the 2008 time of all that, there were other players involved that connect to the Britney Spears case. So, for example, Charlie Crist was the governor of Florida and kind of like let Jeffrey Epstein off, just kind of like didn't really make him have to do too much. And Lou Pearlman was also connected to Charlie Crist at this time, who was also accused by underage people of doing some things like this. Again, I'm having to really be cryptic here, beat around the bush, because I don't really know what I'm allowed to say. But these players are repeat players. So if you're trying to keep up with this from that perspective, then think of Charlie Crist, think of Lou Pearlman, think of Jeff. Oxenberg, this is Prince Andrew's cousin, said her last interaction with Maxi took place in 2013 during her book signing party in New York City. Look, that's her again. That's them again in the photo. I wasn't thrilled about her showing up, but since it was a very busy event, you have to deal with it. She took up more oxygen than necessary. In an attempt to get rid of her, Prince Andrew's cousin told Maxi she would call her, and she did. She invited me over. I asked that she send her chauffeur, but she refused. She told me he had gone to bed, but it was only 6 p.m. I didn't need her to send a chauffeur. I was pulling her leg, but her instinct to lie was to lie for a reply. She was always odd. I took a taxi and went for a visit. Okay, so Oxenberg was like, I asked her to send a chauffeur to come pick me up, and she didn't, so I guess I had to take a taxi. So here's this infamous photo we've all seen by now. Prince Andrew with his arm around the waist of Virginia Jeffrey, who says Jeff did this, paid her to have a relationship with him, right? Prince Andrew has denied the charges, and background is Maxi, right? So here's Maxi. Here's one of the accusers who has said that she was paid money to engage in a relationship with this person who happens to be royalty. What? I don't mean to laugh because it's not funny at all. It's just very difficult for me to like be in this headspace. Oxenberg, the cousin, said she was headed to Maxwell's Manhattan townhouse and it would be the last time the women saw each other. I asked her, how are things with you and Jeff? I said that to be provocative just to see how she took it. Sure enough, she squirmed, looked down and said, everything's fine. Then she started talking about how she's volunteering, had a new boyfriend named Ted, who's a billionaire, and how she had done a TED Talk about her Marine Foundation. It wouldn't be until Julie K. Brown's 3-part Miami Herald series in 2018 on Epstein when Oxenberg said that she became aware of who Maxwell really was. Oxenberg said she spoke to investigators in April 2019. Maxi went into hiding after Jeff eliminated himself. Moving into a gated New Hampshire home with a husband her lawyers have declined to publicly identify. Wait, she has a husband and he hasn't been identified? Maybe it's that Ted guy that she told Oxenberg about. Wrapping her cell phone in foil to ward off hacking. Can that actually work? Does that work? Reply in the comments below. Can you wrap your cell phone in foil to keep you from being hacked? When asked what justice she would like for her today, Oxenberg replied, whatever satisfies the survivors. The indictment against Maxi is based on accusations from 4 women. And this is another important point. What we're talking about here is accusations from only 4 women. So it is not the case that every single of Jeff's accusers have actually been listed in this lawsuit. And that kind of raises questions. If y'all want a little bit more analysis on that, I would encourage you to go to Andy's channel, Popcorned Planet. He did talk to a lawyer yesterday about why it is that only 4 victims, 4 accusers are being listed in this lawsuit. Now, Christopher C. Melcher, who is also a lawyer, has pontificated and theorized that the reason for this is because oftentimes you would, as a lawyer, go for the lowest hanging fruit, meaning prosecutors want to win their cases, right? The main important part of a prosecutor is to win their case. So you want to make sure all your accusers are very credible. They haven't been caught in any lies, et cetera, et cetera. Now, from a moral and ethical standpoint, I personally take huge issue with that because I don't think that there's going to be some perfect victim and they're perfect and they're able to, like, I think that juries should be offered the full scope of evidence and then they should make a decision. But y'all know thank you, Matt. Y'all know I am very, I'm an outlier in the legal community with my opinions. So that's where we are with that. So this particular trial is arising from the allegations and accusations of 4 women. This isn't like all of them. This isn't even more than 4. It's only these particular 4. Okay. So bear that in mind while we're going through these analyses. Now the 4 women say that they were recruited to give Jeff massages that progressed into a certain type of ABUS. One was only 14 years old at the time. Maxi sometimes even participated in these encounters and was involved in paying at least one of the 4 accusers. So she paid, right? Maxi did. Maxi said she never saw Jeff getting massages from anyone under 18 and that no one complained to her that Jeff had demanded this. As for her brother, Ian said Maxi is being railroaded by a U.S. criminal justice system intent on holding someone responsible for Epstein's crimes. And then this is, I guess, an FBI poster, U.S. versus Maxi, charged with facilitating a ABUSE of underage people by Jeff. New York City, Palm Beach, Florida, Santa Fe, New Mexico, London, England. If you recognize either of these people and you feel you may be a victim, please call the following number. Audrey Strauss, acting U.S. attorney for the Southern District of NY, wears a protective mask while listening during a news conference. So this was in 2020. Maxi, a longtime associate of disgraced money manager Jeff Ree, was arrested and charged with conspiracy and enticing underage people to engage in certain types of acts. Today, Oxenberg hopes her book will set the record straight on her relationship with Maxi. She was far more sinister than just a bit odd, she said. The Associated Press contributed to this report. Okay, so now we've gotten 2 separate different perspectives, and we will go and look at, I think 2 or 3 more just to get a broader view, right? Want to make sure we're getting casting a wide net here. Okay, so now we're going to read an article about day 3 of the trial. And this was a little video we can
The woman
watch.
had testified that Maxwell was in the room more than once when Jeffrey Epstein sexually abused the victim starting at age 14. Maxwell's lawyer claimed FBI documents show the witness made inconsistent statements in the past about Maxwell's participation in the sexual assaults. The witness denied ever changing her story. She is the first of 4 accusers who will take the stand during Maxwell's trial, which could last up to 6 weeks.
Okay, so definitely getting demonetized because that guy said that, but whatever, it's the news and I feel like I have an obligation. Okay, so this news source, for anybody interested, is like, I have something in my eye, sorry, is like a local news source, ABC 25, WPBF News. I don't know their political leaning, right or left. It's just another source that we can, go off of. So witness testimonies continue. Now this is about this is about the 3rd day of the trial. Once called the most hunted woman in the world following Jeffrey's death in 2019, Maxi has spent the last year and a half in jail herself. A jury was seated on November 29th when opening statements began in her trial, which is expected to last 6 weeks. A key question for jurors was Maxwell an unwitting pawn of Jeffrey's manipulations or an opportunist who knew all about his crimes? Day 3 of the trial. So we already read about day 1 from the New York Times. Then we read a little bit about Prince Andrew's cousin's accusations against Maxi from Fox News. And now we're reading from a local ABC station about day 3 of the trial. So we skipped day 2, but we're just going over what we can. Maxi's defense attorneys sought Wednesday to undermine a key accuser's allegation that the British socialite helped Epstein abuse the women for years, starting when she was 14. The trial witness, who said she's been using the pseudonym Jane to protect her 22-year acting career, had testified in graphic detail on Tuesday about the alleged encounters in the 1990s, portraying Maxwell as an active participant. Let me see if I can make this bigger. Sorry. During a methodical cross-examination, defense attorney Laura Menninger confronted the woman with FBI documents from 2019 and 2020, saying she had told the government her memory was foggy on whether Maxi was present when Jeffy abused her and whether Maxi ever actually touched the accuser. Other documents claim that she had said that no abuse occurred during a visit to the ranch in New Mexico. That contradicted her testimony about alleged encounters with him, where she said that they made her heart sink into her stomach. The witness denied ever changing her story. She challenged the accuracy of the documents, saying her statements were never recorded. This was just someone jotting down notes. A lot of these are not correct, the accuser said. This is Jane, right? At another point, she responded, "I don't recall saying what's written here." So basically, this accuser is being confronted with evidence that she's saying is fake. She's like, this isn't real. So you're trying to make it look like I'm a liar and I said something I didn't say. I didn't say that stuff. I don't know where you got them notes from. Nobody recorded anything I said, is basically what the accuser is saying. And the defense is saying, nope, you're a liar. You said one time he didn't abuse you, and now you're saying he did. Get your story straight, you lying accuser. And the accuser's like, where did you even get these notes from? I don't even know what that is, basically. That's what I'm gleaning from this, right? The accuser did not dispute other documents, saying she had named several model types and other women she had witnessed participated in group massages with Jeff. She also confirmed telling the FBI she once flew on a private jet with Britain's Prince Andrew. So again, another person saying that they had seen Prince Andrew. So this freak was on the plane more than once. On cross-examination, the defense has also attacked the witness's credibility by asking why she waited over 20 years to report the alleged abuse. Let me just tell y'all something. I understand there's false accusers. Okay, I do. Okay, put that aside for a second. There are real accusers of crimes like this, especially that happen to them whenever they are children. Waiting 20 years is customary. Waiting 20 years is common because it is done to the child in a way that makes it seem normal, like nothing's wrong with it. And it isn't until they are grown adults, sometimes having gone to therapy, gotten married, had children, all kinds of things have happened before they're like, wait just 1 second. That was not normal. And then they start realizing and coming to terms, and then they realize, oh my God, if I come out now, people are going to say, why did you wait so long? And in fact, that's exactly what happens, because you can see that is what Maxwell's lawyer has been doing, trying to attack these women's credibility, saying, why'd you wait over 20 years? She said that she mostly avoided the subject for years because it was too painful. Again, look, like what I just said. Oh, this does go over the days of the trial. So let's see what happened at day 2. We'll work backwards. Day 2 of the trial, Jane, the one who's been acting for 22 years, testified Tuesday that Maxi was often in the room when the witness, then just 14 years old, was subjected to this certain type of abuse. Prosecutors went to the heart of this case against Maxi with their second witness, a woman in her early 40s who was introduced to jurors as Jane, a pseudonym she says she prefers in part to protect her 22-year acting career. During these types of encounters with Jeff, they began in 1994 and continued through 97. Maxi was very casual. She told a New York City jury, like it was no big deal, just like how I described earlier, like I just told y'all. The witness testified in a quiet but steady voice, although she got choked up twice and also dabbed at her nose with a tissue as she described the encounters. She said Maxi instructed her on how to give these type of massages, and sometimes Maxi even physically participated. Jane also largely avoided looking at Maxi, except when she pointed her finger at Maxi when she was asked to identify her in the courtroom. Maxi maintained a steady gaze in the witness's direction. That's in Jane's direction. So the Jane tried not to really look at Maxi, but Maxi was staring Jane down the whole time, is what this article is telling me. Now, I wasn't there. I don't need to see the pictures. I don't know, but this is what we're learning from WPBF. And all of these articles are linked in the description below if y'all want to read them yourself. She also largely avoided looking at Maxi, but Maxi maintained a steady gaze in the witness's direction, occasionally writing notes that she passed to lawyers. So Maxi was writing notes and passing them to her lawyers. Some jurors leaned forward to hear the witness while occasionally glancing at Maxi. The witness testimony was offered by prosecutors to support their claims that Maxi recruited and groomed girls for Jeff to ABUSE from 1994 to at least 2004. Jane first met Jeff and Maxi in 1994 when she was attending a music camp in pursuit of a singing career. She said she was eating ice cream with friends when Maxi approached with a Yorkie, drawing their attention. After her friends left, she spoke with Jeff, who had then arrived and introduced himself as a donor. They discovered that they both lived in Palm Beach, Florida. The woman and her mother soon received an invitation to Jeffy's home, and although her mother was not included in the subsequent invitations, the mother remained very impressed and enamored with Jeff's wealth and the affluence, and believed that Maxi and Jeff must really think their daughter was special, the woman testified. Soon, Jeff and Maxi were taking her shopping for clothes, including underwear from Victoria's Secret, and asking about her life after her father's sudden death in a way that didn't happen at home, where a soul-searching conversations never occurred. So essentially what they're saying is the way that Jeff and Maxi groomed this young girl was to give her an emotional soft place to land, right? Like, let her be open about emotional and terrible things that were going on in her life in order to get her to maybe trust them and do weird stuff with them. Oh, should we watch this video? Y'all want to watch it? Okay. I don't know what this video is going to say.
Protect your home
we have to watch
from
an ad.
pests.
Okay.
Contact Home Paramount Pest Control today
of course.
and ask for a free inspection.
Can't go anywhere
Call
on the internet without that. And pay the bill.
Or visit
Okay, so this video is
homeparamount.com.
allegedly the day 2 recap, so we'll watch that.
An accuser of Ghislaine Maxwell, a woman known as Jane, began testifying today in Maxwell's federal sex trafficking trial in New York.
Maxwell is accused of recruiting and luring underage girls who were then sexually assaulted by Jeffrey Epstein. Jane is the first of 4 accusers to testify against Maxwell, the late Epstein's one-time girlfriend. The witness said today she met Epstein in 1994 when she was 14 years old and had sexual contact with him multiple times. She says Maxwell was in the room on some of those occasions. Maxwell's defense attorney says Jane never accused Maxwell of any wrongdoing before Epstein died.
Tonight, investigative reporter Terry Parker is outside the federal courthouse in New York City, where Epstein's former private pilot also took the stand again today.
So this is from day 2.
We are hearing from an insider from the world of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's former private pilot, describing the pair's luxurious lifestyle and their opulent, wealthy homes spanning from Florida here to New York to Paris to New Mexico. The government's first witness is Larry Vysotsky, who says in the Epstein organization, Ghislaine Maxwell was number 2 and Epstein was a big number 1.
Okay.
Prosecutors showed pictures of Epstein's 10,000-acre ranch in New Mexico, his apartment in Paris, and his private island in the Virgin Islands. Vysotsky says they went there every week or so on one of Epstein's planes, including a Boeing 727 known as the Lolita Express. However, Vysotsky says the girls he saw traveling on the plane seemed to be adults. He says he remembers taking the alleged victim, prosecutors called Jane, who they say was 14 at the time, from West Palm Beach to somewhere he can't remember. The government is trying to prove Epstein and Maxwell took the girl across state lines for sexual abuse at one of Epstein's other homes, which would be trafficking. Under cross-examination, Visosky says he thought the girl was a mature woman and that all the females he saw traveling with Epstein were adults. He also says he never saw any sexual activity taking place on the planes and absolutely none with underage girls. Prosecutors said in opening statements they will produce flight logs and passenger lists showing underage girls did fly with Epstein. Visosky testified Maxwell often arranged flight schedules with him. Maxwell's attorneys contend Maxwell was simply an employee of Epstein's and was manipulated by his wealth and power herself. But the government says the pair was ultimate predators who befriended girls from poor or broken families, dazzled them with extreme wealth and luxury, promised to make their dreams come true, but then ensnared them in the nightmarish world of a sexual pyramid scheme. And 4 of those victims will testify against Maxwell. The government is trying to show also that Epstein's access to these remote islands, ranches, and luxurious private homes gave him the chance to molest all of these girls, all the time, they say, aided by Maxwell. In New York, Terry Parker, WPBF 25 News.
Okay. So, I don't know if that actually added anything. What do y'all think? So that was from the day 2 of the trial. The cycle of abuse started when Jeff abruptly took this accuser by the hand and said, "Follow me," before taking her to a pool house at the home, and then did this action that I'm not going to read, pulled her close and proceeded to engage in this type of behavior. The accuser said that she was frozen in fear and she had never seen that type of body part before. She was terrified, she felt gross, and she felt ashamed. And remember, she was 14. Another time, she was taken to a massage room where Maxi and Jeff had both taken advantage of her. There were hands everywhere, and he proceeded to do this again. Other encounters involved toys or turned into group activities with other young people and Maxi. On cross-examination, the defense lawyer, so Maxi's lawyer, immediately attacked the witness's credibility, asking why she waited over 20 years to report the alleged abuse by Maxi to law enforcement, and why she brought 2 personal injury lawyers along with her first meeting with the FBI. Okay, so again, this doesn't carry a lot of weight for me. Somebody waiting, I even have some of y'all in my comments, and thank you very much for being so open. Y'all already know I get so emotional about this stuff. Thank you for being open about this in the comments, y'all, because I hate lives. I would edit this out. Because girls are treated this way all the time, and they very often do not come forward with what happened to them ever. Like sometimes it's you're on your deathbed. There's people in my comments right now saying, or in my live chat right now saying, yeah, like my uncle treated me this way and I never told anybody except maybe at this family reunion where I yelled at him. Like this is it's a totally normal reaction to a completely abnormal situation. And y'all can disagree with me if you want. And again, I know y'all are going to be talking about, but there's fake accusers. Yeah, there are. But I don't really think that these accusers are fake. And so for them to have to sit here knowing that it was really hard to come out and be asked, why'd you wait so long? Like lots of people wait a long time. And the fact that this is a woman asking these questions makes me literally want to physically get in a physical altercation. Like I want to fight. Like I get so mad. Anyway, I hate these people. This defense lawyer, and this is just as lawyers, I just get so offended that lawyers do this, but I guess, the legal system does say everyone deserves a defense, but I'm not a fan. Also asked if it was true that the accuser had previously spoken to her siblings and others close to her about Jeff's behavior. Maxwell, but left Maxi out of earlier accounts. You never mentioned Maxi, the lawyer asked. I don't know, the witness responded, adding she only remembered being uncomfortable with going into all the details. The defense attorney also elicited testimony from the woman that said she was awarded $5 million from a fund set up to compensate victims of Jeff, and she received $2.9 million once her lawyer fees. Okay, so this lady received $2.9 million from a fund already. which I don't know if what that has to do with anything. This is a criminal investigation, not a civil, so she could still be called as a witness. If anything, I'm kind of concerned that they gave her $2.9 million. If she didn't have any case, why'd y'all give her that money, $5 million? And the woman had to spend $1 million on $2 million on fees for lawyers. Maxwell has pleaded not guilty. One of her lawyers said in an opening statement Monday that she is being made a scapegoat. Okay, so this is the third article. So one thing that I think I'm pretty comfortable ascertaining that happened at this trial is that the defense called Ghislaine a scapegoat. I definitely think that was said. We've seen it. New York Times said it. We saw Fox News said it. And now we see an independent, or not an independent, an ABC affiliate, in a local news station also said it. So I'm comfortable saying that they definitely called her a scapegoat, who eliminated himself in his Manhattan cell at age 66 in 2019 as he awaited his trial. Earlier Tuesday, a former pilot for Jeff testified that he never saw evidence of any type of this type of activity on planes as he flew his boss and others, including a prince and ex-presidents, for nearly 3 decades. The pilot, so this is, again, we're hearing the same story about the pilot, but instead of from the New York Times, we're just hearing it from a different news source so we can make sure we're not being defrauded by the Times. I like to read news from a bunch of different sources. If you're just joining us, that's what we're doing here. So this pilot was the first witness called at trial, and he acknowledged that he never encountered any of this type of activity aboard the 2 jets he piloted for roughly 1,000 trips between 1991 and 2019. So almost 30 years. He was a government witness. His testimony seemed to aid the defense of Maxi, as he told Maxi's attorney, Christian Everdell. Now, this is the 3rd attorney that I've heard mentioned for her. So she has at least 3 different attorneys that are asking questions. That he never saw any type of activity when he left the cockpit for coffee or a bathroom break, and never found any type of those type of toys, or I'm not reading that out loud, when he cleaned up. And when he was asked if he ever saw this type of acts with underage people, he answered absolutely not. He also acknowledged that ex-President Bill Clinton was a passenger on a few flights in the 2000s, and he had piloted planes with Prince Andrew, the late U.S. Senator John Glenn of Ohio, the first American to orbit Earth, and former President Donald Trump had also flown on the planes. Now, again, I know I have viewers from all over the political aisle, but what we have here is completely bipartisan. Bill Clinton and Donald Trump are both mentioned by this pilot as having been on that plane. Now, what did they do on the plane? I don't know. But we have the pilot here implicating both of them. Epstein's plane was named the Lolita Express by some in the media after allegations emerged that he used it to fly teenagers to his private island, New Mexico ranch, and New York City townhouse. Maxi traveled for decades in circles that put her in contact with accomplished and wealthy people before her July 2020 arrest. Asked by Assistant U.S. Attorney Maureen Comey, who is related, weirdly, to, what's his name, James Comey, former head of the FBI. It's kind of strange. I think this is his daughter, his sister or something. So she is an Assistant U.S. Attorney on this case, where Maxi stood in the hierarchy of Epstein's world. She was the number 2. And the pilot added Epstein was the big number 1. The testimony supported what the U.S. Attorney, the other U.S. Attorney, told jurors in her opening statement Monday, and that they were partners in crime. Now, I'm not going to watch this video. I don't know what these people are going to say. Okay, so trial background. Prosecutors say they have not... Oh, so this is about day 1 of the trial. We've already read about day 1 from New York Times, but let's just get it from a different source to make sure we're not being lied to. You know what I mean? Media likes... Oh, wait. Hold on a second. Let me just read a comment real quick. What's going on? Hold on. I'm just trying to read. Daughter. Thank you, Proud Texas Lady. Maureen Comey is James Comey's daughter. So the former head of the FBI. Y'all remember when Maxine Waters was like, the head of the FBI has 0 credibility. That's who she was talking about. And then that guy also came out and I think testified against Trump in the first impeachment trial. I'm not exactly sure. I don't know. I'm just trying to remember. Okay. Anyway, yeah. Y'all like the video too. Thank you very much. Because I'm not going to be getting no kind of monetization from it. So just give it a like. At least that'll help me out. Prosecutors said they have not offered any deal to Maxi. And when the judge asked her if she agreed with her lawyer that she had committed no crime, she said, "I have committed no crime." The defense said it did not seek a plea deal. The 4 accusers who claim Maxi groomed them to be abused by Epstein will be able to remain anonymous. So all 4 accusers are going to remain anonymous during the trial, and I guess I understand why that could be. I don't know. I'm torn on it, but I do want to protect these victims because I know it's probably very hard for them to come forward anyway. Like, they're probably scared for their lives and everything else. So the judge ruled that the women who claim Maxi brought them into Epstein's orbit can be referred to as victims or minor victims, a description Maxwell's attorneys tried to quash. So if y'all are not familiar with that, at the beginning of this case, Maxi's lawyers tried to keep the prosecutors from referring to the people who were accusers as victims. Maxi did not want them to be called victims or minor victims, and the judge was like, why? That doesn't make any sense. They are victims. But I think it's really interesting because the same issue came up in the Kyle Rittenhouse case. And I followed that case start to finish. I just didn't talk about it on my channel because y'all don't know how to act. And hopefully, as I'm starting to do more of this, I start to develop a larger audience of independent thinkers so that I'm not like attacked for covering cases that are very important. But there's just no way I could have covered the Kyle Rittenhouse case. It was way too politicized, and there was just no way I could really get to the truth of the matter on YouTube because it's just like a hornet's nest on here. But in that trial, the same issue came up. And in fact, the judge ruled the other way. The judge said, you can't call them victims because it hasn't been proven yet that they are victims. But in this trial, the judge said, you can call them victims. So I just thought that was just interesting how the courts came to different conclusions on that same question in these 2 very high profile cases. So she did rule. So that attorney tried to say they're not victims, they're not minor victims, but the judge said, F you, they are victims and you can call them victims, basically. Maxi will also not be able to talk about the prior conviction, Epstein's prior conviction in Palm Beach County. That's where the Charlie Crist stuff all came up. If you are wondering about that, please do go watch Slave Princess at slaveprincess.com. You will see in the 3rd part of that documentary how all of these people fit together, including Charlie Crist, who now is trying to put forth many conservatorship bills all of a sudden having to do with Britney's conservatorship. It's just really weird. Like, this Charlie Crist guy is bad news, and he's running for governor of Florida again. His so-called sweetheart plea deal gave immunity to any co-conspirators. Nathan, the judge, said that deal doesn't stop the government from bringing in these new charges against Maxi. Unsealed court documents allege that Maxi, the close confidant of Jeff, kept an album containing photographs of this type of girls who visited the Palm Beach mansion. The claims regarding the photo albums come from a recently released 2016 deposition with Jeff's former maintenance man, Juan Alessi. And I think that has to do with that little black book as well. If you missed my first video on this, please do go back and watch that. I do discuss the little black book that Maxi tried to keep out of the trial, but it does seem as though it is going to probably come in. I don't know. Has she decided on that or not yet, y'all? Yeah, exact. Thank you, Matt Bryant. Those names, there's tons of names we know in that book. Go to my Google Drive. It's there. Thank you very much. Names of the island visitors would be nice. Okay. The judge won't let Maxi's attorneys argue the government is prosecuting Maxi because they were denied bringing Jeff to trial after he was found terminated in his jail cell. The alleged ABUSE happened in the 90s and early 2000s. Again, this is only what's at issue in this case. This case only brings to issue 4 different accusers. Okay, so it's not all of the accusers. I'm not going to read the alleged crimes because I'm just asking for it at that point, but this is linked below if y'all want to read it. So now I'm going to go to our next news source, which is going to be, again, I do not really like this news source. I do not think it's necessarily credible, but a lot of people in the country do. So we're going to give it a little bit of airtime here because we can use our own independent thoughts and thinking about whether or not we actually think that this is what happened. Okay, so this is from CNN. We're going to read 2 CNN articles, then we're going to be done. They're all linked below. Yes, please do hit the like button. Thank you, Hope, very much. This video will certainly be decreased and diminished in the algorithm because of the topic and the subject. So I do really appreciate any way that y'all can try and help support the channel when I'm doing this type of reading. Okay, so this one is more just about the house manager who testified and said that the staff was instructed to, quote, see nothing, hear nothing, and say nothing. Let's see if we can watch this video. We're gonna get
You
an
honestly
ad.
can't think you can run Russia.
I can. I will do some big things.
This looks fun. What show is
Did you
that?
actually just free the serfs?
I
It
did.
reminds me of,
You didn't
like,
want to
Hamilton.
discuss it?
I don't know what this ad
clear
is.
what
Y'all
to
know
do,
ads
so I
everywhere
did
you
it.
go on it.
You are vibrant, fierce creatures who can build a better
At
Russia.
least it's a little bit of a
I'm being
palate
attacked
cleanse,
from all
right?
angles today.
Yeah.
This country needs changing. What is the worst?
Talking about this stuff is so great. Jada Lady, thank you so much.
Never dull here.
Huzzah.
It's like really hard for me to cover it, but it's a really important case. And
Well, what do we
mainstream
know
media
about
is,
some
like,
of the
not doing
witnesses
best.
prosecutors are expected to call? I mean, that defense argument isn't completely off base. There are a lot of men, deviants, predators, pedophiles who have not been charged with anything.
Yeah, that's right. We're supposed to hear from 4 of these alleged accusers who are going to detail how they met up with Ghislaine Maxwell, what was their interactions with them, what they did when they spent time with her. And then also, of course, I'm sure we'll learn about what did happen behind those closed doors in all those houses with Jeffrey Epstein. And yeah, the defense is trying to say that Ghislaine Maxwell, was a victim herself. So we'll be hearing on right now the prosecution from these women, but also their family members, how it affected them, these years of alleged abuse, and also members of the staff who the government says knew very well what was going on and were told to be quiet about it. Look away, don't say anything, don't talk about it, according to Ghislaine Maxwell giving these instructions. So again, we are expected to hear a lot, not only about Ghislaine Maxwell's involvement, but more about these alleged occurrences that were happening behind closed doors at the hand of Jeffrey Epstein as well.
Okay, so there's that.
What can clean energy tax credits do for America?
Okay, so let's just
Speed up
see
the energy
what
transition,
what's going on
like the
here.
Colorado
Longtime
steel
house
mill
manager
that
of
Lightsource
Jeff.
BP
Thank you
is
so
powering by
much.
renewables,
I am
supporting more
forgiving
than 1,000
The
jobs,
longtime house manager
while
of Jeff,
preventing
home of his home in
433,000
Palm
tons of
Beach,
CO2
Florida,
from entering the atmosphere every year.
read aloud
good
from an
climate
instruction
policy can lead to
booklet
more projects like
Maxi
Big
gave
Horn.
him in 2001 or 2002 that had instructed staff in minute detail on Jeff's home.
That
I'm sorry to say
dramatically
that it
low
was just very
flyover
degrading
at
to
a
me.
Tennessee
Most of the
Titans
pages,
game
they were
last
just
month, now
unbelievable
prompting
to
the
me.
U.S. military
Ron
and the
Alessi, the manager,
FAA to
testified in
review the
federal court
spectacle and
yesterday.
determine if the pilots
The
broke any
manual contained
regulations. You can see
instructions
here
for staff
the
to
4
maintain
choppers
extreme
flew as
discretion
low
for
as the height of the
for
stadium's
Jeff,
upper deck
Maxi,
there.
and their guests.
Military officials tell
The
CNN
quote,
they expect the
"Remember,
investigation
you
to be
see
over
nothing,
quickly
hear
if
nothing,
flight
say
rules
nothing,
were
except to
violated. The
answer a
commanding
question
general
directed at you.
of the
Respect
101st
their
Airborne
privacy,"
Division will
Alessi
decide on further
read
action.
from the manual. He took the rule as a warning to keep quiet about anything he saw. It means a kind of warning that I'm supposed to be blind, deaf, and dumb to say nothing of their lives unless otherwise instructed.
We can go
Never
further than that.
disclose Jeff or Max's activities
This is a
or
bucket list
whereabouts to
moment.
anyone. If the caller is insistent
What
or
is
simply
that?
asks to take a message, that's fine.
We all ready?
Remember where the
Sir,
caller can be reached. Do not be bullied and do not show any reaction or impatience.
I almost guarantee you're
Simply
gonna
be
survive.
firm. He read from the manual. He flew commercial once.
Congress
to
subverted
the
a
estate in
government
New
shutdown
Mexico
just
to
hours
attend
ago,
a symposium
just hours to
with
go, I
other
should say, until the
staff about
deadline
how to
tomorrow.
clean
The
his
Senate
house,
voting
as
to
he
pass
said.
a
He also
stopgap bill that
recalled
kicks the can
Maxi's
down the
dog, a
road
Yorkie
to
called
mid-February
Max,
and handing a
traveled with her
defeat
everywhere.
to
He
conservative
said he had to
Republicans who
bathe
tried
the
to
dog
force the
every
Biden
time before the
administration
dog
to
traveled
knuckle
with
under
Maxi,
on
and the dog
vaccine
shook
mandates
with
by
fear
threatening
when
to
he had
shut
to go
down the
on a
federal
plane.
government. So CNN congressional correspondent Lauren Fox
Thank you
is
so
on the Hill
much.
for us. She joins us now with more. So Lauren, good evening to you. What's the latest?
Well done. With about 26 hours to go, Congress was able to avert this government shutdown. Like you said, there was a last-minute question mark of whether or not two conservative senators were going to hold up this process. Remember that because they waited till the last minute, as Congress often does, they had to have a unanimous consent agreement, meaning they had to have all 100 senators in agreement to expedite this process to make sure that the government did not shut down. Well, two senators said they wanted a vote to defund the president's vaccine mandates. We should note for viewers back home that these mandates require people to be vaccinated or get tested regularly before they go to work. They do have that opt-out option, and that is something that Democrats on the Senate floor were pointing out in spades tonight during this debate. But that vote was defeated. So, of course, the president's mandate still funded as part of this continuing resolution. There is also now going to be an aversion of that government shutdown, meaning the government will not shut down tomorrow at midnight. Both Republican and Democratic leaders were on the floor celebrating that fact, arguing that it was very important that both sides came together to make sure that this didn't happen tonight or tomorrow night, Don. A very important moment for Congress, but we should note this is only a government funding until February 18th. So we get to do this whole thing again in just a couple months.
So February 18th, we go back through all of this one more time. It seems like we just went through it.
In opening statements, my eyes are so watery. In opening statements of her trial on Monday, prosecutors said Maxwell and Epstein created a pyramid scheme of abuse to lure underage girls into these types of relationships with Epstein.
You can save an average of 2 times more with our smart savings tools. For everything we want, we're all better off with an ally.
Of the women.
So then I said to her, now in this scene, I'm going to cock the gun. And I said, do you want to see that? And she said, yes. So I take the gun and I start to cock the gun. I'm not going to pull the trigger. I said, do you see that? She goes, well, just cheat it down and tilt it down a little bit like that. And I cock the gun. I go, can you see that? Can you see that? Can you see that? And she says, and then I let go of the hammer of the gun and the gun goes off.
That he met.
So again, Scott, you're saying that the trigger would have already, if the trigger was already pulled back and he had the hammer in his hand, it was pulling it back and then just let it go,
from the day she came to the house,
that
she
would
right
fire
away
the
took
gun.
over and mentioned to me that she was going to be the lady of the house.
Yes, the trigger
and also
keeps
she
the
was in
hammer
charge of
from
other
falling.
homes.
As you pull the hammer to the rear, the trigger engages on it. And then when you pull the trigger, it disengages, allowing the hammer to fall forward and igniting the cartridge. So if the hammer was already to the rear, and as he's pulling the hammer back, as he describes, and lets go of that hammer, that's the only way that gun could fire is if the trigger is already to the.
Okay, I just closed that one. Is it still playing? Can y'all still hear it? Okay. Wait, it's still playing or it's gone? I closed out of CNN. Can someone type the sentence out like you stopped it? Okay. So I guess we're not reading the rest of that one. Oh, okay. Sorry. Anyway, okay. So basically what I was just reading was, and I'm having like allergic reactions, like all of the powers that be do not want me to talk about this. Okay, thank you. It's gone. Great. Fantastic. Okay, basically the article I was just reading from CNN, it's linked below, you can read it yourself, is the former house manager of the Palm Beach residence was talking about how he found it very weird and strange that he had to follow all of these certain rules of the house. Y'all can read it below. I don't want to click on it again because obviously it was blocking out my talking. My bad. And then again, like, I guess we can just like run over this one real quick. Okay, let me share this one last one with y'all and then I'm going to go. Okay. Okay, so this one's called Prosecution Links Maxi to Jeff while defense says she's being blamed for his actions. Now, this is from November 29th. So this is the first day of the trial. And I just wanted to say, like, the playbook eventually changed. They began to give $100 bills to poor teenage girls from broken homes, promising them money and access to resources. By the early 2000s, Maxi and Jeff found an easier way to maintain a continuous flow of girls to ABUSE. They divide a pyramid scheme of abuse. So what they end up describing is Jeff is at the top of the pyramid. Number 2 is Maxi. And then she recruits like top girls to then recruit other girls to then recruit other girls to then recruit other girls. And this sounds very similar to the R. Kelly allegations. Do y'all remember watching that? It was like he had his favorite confidant girls and then they would recruit others, then they would recruit others. And it was very much so from these schools in the surrounding area. That's the only way anyone listens to CNN by accident. Oh my God, stop Redneck Rocker. What a funny name. Okay. At least my comments spiked up with interactions. I'm sorry, y'all. Y'all know I do my best trying to go live and be live and do things. Yes, thank you, Monka. This is a way to support me and my efforts. Whenever I'm talking about stuff like this, just be aware that YouTube does take away like most of my ability to actually financially gain from these videos, which is fine because it's not really the reason I do it. But since I don't have a job at all anymore, like any support that you can provide would be great. No pressure. I'm happy to provide these services for free. Yeah, the world does absolutely hate teenage girls, invalidates them, and does not listen to them. And I can tell you that because I was a teenage girl for like, I don't know, 8-9 years, however long you're a teenager. Okay, back to this. Okay, this is our last article too. In response, Maxi's defense told jurors in her opening statement that she was a scapegoat. Okay, listen. One thing is for sure. Somebody called this woman a scapegoat. Like that. Every article has referred to her as that. So this is kind of like what I like to do, right? Usually I would do this much faster because I'm not reading it out loud. I just like to go. Fox News, I'll read OAN. I'll read anything. I will read Independent, Atlantic. As long as you don't have a paywall, once you start putting paywalls up, it starts to get on my nerves. But I will read anything because what I want to do is take where all those different sources overlap, because where they overlap, it's more likely, in my opinion, to be true. Does that make sense? Or is that just like so obvious people already know that? Because the way that I'm seeing people interact with the news lately, it's not very obvious that people realize they can read news from a lot of different sources. Like, oh, you read something from Fox News, you're a Republican. You read something from CNN, you're a Democrat. Like, no, like that's not necessarily the case. I think it's weird if you only get your news from one news source, because what could they be lying to you about? We know CNN lies. We have seen that in the Free Britney case. I think they probably all lie to some degree. But where we can see them overlapping, I think we can have a better indication that's probably what happened. Eve again. Eve was accused of tempting Adam with the apple. Women have been blamed for the bad behavior of men, and women are often villainized and punished more than the men are. I mean, that is true. Women are often villainized and punished more than men are, but we are talking about allegations that this woman participated in that are really heinous, and she deserves to be held responsible for them, no matter if she's a woman or not. The charges against her for things that Jeff did. She is not Jeff, the defense attorney. Another woman, Bobby Sternheim, said. The opening statements come on the first day of her federal trial on charges. This is from the first day. The trial is likely to give a glimpse into the enigmatic life of the late Jeff, Maxi's close confidant, who died in jail in 2019 before he was due to stand trial. After the opening statements, the government called its first witness, which is Larry, the former pilot. So again, this is the third. Thank you so much, Jennifer. This is the third news source that's saying this was the first guy who came up. So I'm pretty comfortable and confident believing there's 3 different news sources that have corporate news sources, right? Mainstream media news sources that have said, yes, this Larry guy was the first person who did go to testify. So I think I'm pretty comfortable actually believing that. I'm going to adjust my chair. Sorry. Maxi was first charged in July 2020 with enticement and conspiracy to entice minors to travel and engage in certain types of acts, transportation and conspiracy to transport minors with intent to engage in criminal activity for allegedly doing this, and recruiting underage girls from 1994 through 1997. So the allegations in this particular complaint seem to arise from 94 through 97. So again, all kind of stuff happened outside of that range, right? We are not necessarily talking about that in these charges, but we may end up doing that. Prosecutors can expand their scope as well. Prosecutors later added, they later added charges alleging that Maxi interacted with a 14-year-old on multiple occasions in Palm Beach and encouraged and enticed her to recruit other girls to perform these types of massages. This sounds just like the R. Kelly case. If y'all haven't watched that Lifetime expose, there's 2 series of documentaries. Please go watch it, because this is playbook, taken directly out of this playbook. The pilot, who began working in 1991 for Epstein, we have seen that from multiple sources as well, frequently traveled on the private jet between 94 and 2004 and would often facilitate travel plans with Larry for Jeff. He described his memory of the pair's relationship as more personal than businesslike, but more couple-ish than actually romantic. He did not remember seeing them kiss or hold hands. Logging the names of all passengers on his private flights was not a priority, but they tried their best to be accurate. For international flights, he had to report an accurate passenger log. The pilot often flew Jeff between New York, Paris, St. Thomas, New Mexico, and Florida, and would frequently go to Epstein's properties at those locations, for example, to facilitate luggage for Jeff and his guests. He would continue testifying Tuesday morning. Maxi has denied any wrongdoing, telling the court at a recent hearing that she has not committed any crimes. She faces up to 70 years in prison if convicted on all 6 counts, and the trial is expected to last about 6 weeks. She was arrested nearly a year after Jeff was arrested, and his was 2002 to 2005. She was arrested initially from her, I think she was arrested initially for 94 through 97. He was arrested 2002 to 2005. But I think this is just going to be an all-encompassing thing at some point. I mean, I don't see how you can only limit it to a certain few years. Epstein was found eliminated in his prison cell, and what I find just completely inappropriate is that the footage from outside his cell has been deleted. So, okay, come on, y'all. Like, this is out of control. And I was watching Popcorn Planet yesterday, Andy, and he's basically said the same thing. He's like, how can you blame people? How can you blame people for being suspicious that this is just a huge sham, a huge show trial, whenever the alleged footage of Jeffrey allegedly offing himself is just deleted? It's just hard for me to wrap my mind around how that can happen. I mean, like, the medical examiner cause of death is, y'all can read it yourself. He was convicted, registered this type of offender after he pled guilty to 2 state this type of charges in 2008, and Charlie Crist gave him a sweetheart deal. Maxi, once a very public socialite known for jet setting with Jeff and other high-profile figures, including Prince Andrew, former presidents Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, seemingly fell off the grid after he was arrested. So she used to be trying to be all, famous and cute or whatever, but once he was arrested, she fell off the grid. He was arrested as he got off of a flight from Paris in July 2019. Prosecutors preview their case and opening statements. I'm not going to play that video because I don't know how to turn it off once they start playing. So the prosecutor began her opening statements by describing Maxi as the lady of the house, running his homes for over a decade, sharing in his luxurious lifestyle, all while aiding and abetting his abuse of minor girls. She ran a tight ship to create a culture of silence for Epstein, the prosecutor said. Employees were to see nothing, hear nothing, say nothing. There was a culture of silence. That was by design, the defendant's design, because behind closed doors, the defendant and Epstein were committed heinous crimes. They were abusing teenage girls. The prosecutor said Maxwell had a hands-on role in the abuse. She manipulated the girls for abuse, helped the girls feel comfortable as friendliness escalated to abuse. Sometimes she was even in the room for the massages herself. Sometimes she even participated in those massages. And even when she was not in the room, she knew exactly what was going on and what he was going to do to those children when she sent them inside his massage rooms. Massage rooms inside the houses The defendant ran for over a decade. Jurors will hear from alleged victims, their family members, former members of Epstein's staff, including pilots, employees who worked in the Palm Beach residence, law enforcement agents who conducted the 2005 search of the Palm Beach residence, the Manhattan Mansion in 2019. In addition, prosecutors plan to show jury flight logs for Epstein's private planes, FedEx records for a gift he sent to one girl when she was 15, and explicit photos from inside the homes. The prosecutors also told jurors that they would hear about the Epstein Victim Compensation Program, which awarded money to some of the girls in the case who accused Maxi and Epstein of abuse. You'll also hear that a fund was used to compensate girls who he abused and awarded some of these witnesses millions of dollars. But it would be obvious to you at this trial, these witnesses would have paid anything for this not to have happened to them. They would pay anything to have never met Epstein. Maxi focused her attention on the jury during the prosecutor's opening statement, but at times she stared off in the direction of the judge. When prosecutors spoke of one witness using the pseudonym Jane, Maxwell took notes. Defense attacks alleged victims. Bobby Sternheim laid out the defense strategy in opening statements, attack and undermine the four women set to testify about their interactions. She told jurors the trial is about memory, manipulation, and money. Victims have manipulated their memories of alleged abuse by Epstein to include Maxwell because they've been financially incentivized to take Maxi down in the wake of his death. She acknowledged his abusive behavior and his own schemes to some extent, but maintained that Maxi was roped into prosecution efforts only after his death because of their long relationship. She is a scapegoat for a man who behaved badly. She is a target, a bullseye of anger for women who were or otherwise believed they were victimized by Epstein. Yes, he manipulated the world around him and the people around him. He compartmentalized his life, showing only what he wanted to show. Including Maxi. The defense attorney repeatedly told jurors that the alleged victims outlined in the indictment reframed their stories of abuse against Epstein to include Maxi for the sake of a payday. She placed blame on civil attorneys who she said saw them as easy targets for lawsuits. The defense attorney spoke at length about the Victim Compensation Fund, telling jurors the alleged victims in this case received millions of an enhanced compensation package throughout the program for cooperating with the government. Sternheim went through each alleged victim expected to testify, discrediting them for different reasons, including delayed reporting and substance abuse. Well, if I was treated like this by this man, I might get hooked on a substance too. This is disgusting. I do not like these defense lawyers. The parties took more than one sidebar after several objections from prosecutors. The prosecution objected to certain language used by the defense about how the alleged victim's potential financial motives in the case. Okay, I'm not going to read about them. Okay, what we might see in court. Previous court filings have previewed what evidence and testimony will be part of this case. A former employee at the Palm Beach mansion will testify about an address book, and I have a video on that. Y'all go watch it. Containing information for alleged underage victims, high-profile celebrities. The employee will testify that the copy aligns with his recollection. The judge said during the final pretrial that she would hear unnamed employees' testimony. The book belonged to, prosecutors allege that Maxi had a pattern of GROOIMG. The victims, making them comfortable by taking them on outings like shopping and going to see movies and asking them about personal lives. An expert on this type of abuse is expected to testify for the prosecution on the GROOMING of minors for this type of abuse, a concept at the crux of the government's argument. The judge ruled the defense may also call expert witnesses to combat that testimony. So this other doctor is expected to downplay that testimony, saying that it can simply be any kind of behavior, but does not inherently have to be associated with this type of abuse. Another doctor, Loftus, is expected to testify for the defense about memory distortion and the tendency of victims to remember core information, but forget or misremember peripheral details. She was also paid, that same doctor, to testify at the Harvey Weinstein defense in 2020 trial that ended in a conviction of the disgraced movie mogul. Maxi faces 2 additional perjury charges in connection to the allegations that she lied in a 2016 civil deposition, which are expected to be handled in a separate trial. So I am pretty tired and emotionally drained from reading this. Again, if you need a palate cleanse, I would strongly encourage you to go watch my most recent video where I am reacting to spicy Indian snacks. It is wholesome, it is fun, it is cute. Jake is there. And yeah, I don't know how much more I can talk about this right now. It's like stressing me out and making me feel sad. I'm going to go light a candle and I don't know, something else. But yeah, so this is what happened in the first week of the trial. According to different sources in the mainstream media. Again, I wasn't in the room. I will try to go to the room at some point during this trial, I think. But in the interest of transparency, I tried to use a bunch of different news sources and news pieces in order to try and get to the bottom of what I think actually happened in the trial. So I'm going to go rinse my eyes out because apparently I'm having allergic reactions to literally everything. Take an antihistamine and I don't know, talk to y'all later. Facts and defamation, love you, mean it. Thank you so much for coming by, supporting the channel. Again, I do anticipate this type of content is going to be highly suppressed, perhaps demonetized. So any help that you can give with liking the video and stuff like that, that'll be very appreciated, sharing it and things like that, because it makes it easier for me to make this type of content because y'all like actually can, you know, share it and people actually see it. So I will talk to you later. Facts and defamation, love you, mean it. Okay, bye.